It's like real big time stuff.
No, I just picture the Wayne's World where they're filming the TV show and they're trying to teach the guy how to do like the silent countdown.
Right.
Yeah. Pull that mic in a little bit closer to you. But
Okay.
there you go. Perfect.
What do you
Morning, Jason. We're going to do this one a little earlier than normal. Normally, I don't let you take it.
Usually I don't get released for any podcast stuff till post 2 p.m.
You know what's funny, Jason? Almost every day I call you on your lunch break.
Yes, you do. I'm
like-
well aware of that fact.
Every time I'm like, let me call, whatever it is about that time slot, I'm like, let me call Jason real quick. And everybody in the shop's like, he's on break. He's on his lunch. And I'm like, well, whatever. And you never answer your phone on your lunch break.
You want to know why? Well, because that's the time of day it finally slows down enough that I can usually step away.
That's funny. It's almost a ritual. It's turned into a joke. It's like almost every time.
It's 3 to 4 times a week for sure.
I'm consistent. Whatever it is, it's not before, it's not after. I want to talk to you on your lunch break.
On my lunch break. Call the cell phone. I'll have it with me. I got to take care of all this train wreck we got going outside usually during lunch breaks.
Yeah. We got a guest here today. It's his name is, well, I don't even know how. Kevin is the legal.
He doesn't even know your
name.
name.
No, that's fine. Most people don't know my first name's Kevin. I've just gone by Mike my whole life because it was easier for my parents to yell.
I call people the wrong names all the time, so it don't matter. Like,
True story.
anyways, let me turn Jason down a little bit. You go by Mike, right?
Yes.
How did you get the name Mike?
It's my middle name, Michael.
Okay, Mike. So
Well, that was easy.
when we were interviewing, we were like, so new employee, your first day was yesterday, right?
Yep.
So I thought, I'm going to pull you in on this podcast. We're going to talk about some antennas. You've been asking a ton of questions, and so I thought maybe you'll be a good one to bring in on this.
So it's like a training / informative podcast.
We just throw people in the fire and like watch them squirm. So
That's fine. That's the best way to do it.
so tell us a little bit about you. I know we did an interview with you, but you had some military background.
So I am a retired Coast Guard veteran. I have to say medically retired. I did it about 14 years before I broke too many bones and couldn't deploy.
Right.
I grew up in Southern California, Kern County.
I forgot that part. We might have not.
We'll edit that part out.
I don't brag about that. I've spent more time stationed in Oregon and Washington, and I just kind of claim the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
Grew up in a real conservative county farm community. It's called Tehachapi. It's an old Indian word for summer home because it was cooler in the summer than the freaking Mojave Desert.
Right.
Joined the Coast Guard right out of high school because I wanted to rebel and didn't want to go to college. First unit was Coast Guard Station San Francisco. I did 4 years in the San Francisco Bay. Really eye-opening for a kid that grew up in a town with one stoplight. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of cool people, a lot of cool missions. I got to work with, all the local agencies, FBI, Marshals, Search and Rescue, A's and Navigation. I did just about the whole mission the Coast Guard did.
Right.
After about 4 years, I went off to Virginia for the first time, where I received my A school training, where I became a gunner's mate. I knew from that point I had done a lot of small boat search and rescue, and I wanted to get underway and deploy. I was then assigned to the Coast Guard Cutter Alert based out of Astoria, Oregon. And that's kind of where I fell in love with the Pacific Northwest. I got away from my hobbies of video games and, paintball and quads, and started getting into the off-roading a little more of the gun culture, shooting, stuff like that. At that point, I had tried previously, but had no luck, and I tried once more. I said, if I didn't get this assignment I want, I'll take the job offer from Portland PD after spending some time at Rosefest in 2012. I'd put in an application, got an offer, but instead I chose to go to the Coast Guard's mission overseas, PATFOR SWA, Pacific Forces, Southwest Asia. I spent a year over there working with the Navy, Army, and some of the other military branches, where I got a lot more experience with the heavier weapons, double 50 cal.
What were you guys doing over there?
So a big part of our mission at that time was shifting away from the territorial protection because Iraq was becoming more stable. We did a lot of anti-piracy patrols, a lot of quality of life boardings.
What's that like? Like that I mean, is it like you see on these videos where you guys are like hauling ass and running over little boats and shit?
I kind of wish. We didn't do too much piracy. If we did, we were tracking boats for the Navy or for other countries because we were smaller. The 110-foot cutters have a smaller radar signature. We are much better at going dark. We are much better at going under.
So it was like sneaky stuff, not like running shit over.
Right. I wouldn't say we were like super spies, but
man, I was hoping you're gonna have some better stories than that.
Oh, I got plenty of stories.
I want to hear some running some shit over, being like, well, we've smoked that boat.
We've run some stuff over, but never anything fun or good. Usually the kind of stuff that gets us stuck or sunk.
Oh,
but I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about those.
Welcome to the hound world. That's what we do. Is we run shit over. Like, oh, there was a stump under that snow berm.
So that was I got a lot of. The biggest part I took away from that was the experience. I got to play with some new tech from the Navy, but I found I really enjoyed the larger guns, the 50 cal. We re-prototyped and brought out a dual-mounted system, which was, if you've ever shot a M2 50 cal, that's a lot of fun. But two of them at the same time, that's a whole nother level of fun.
Yeah.
At that point, coming from
little boats or big, I mean, I want to hear some boats. What does that do to a boat? That's what I want to know.
Shreds it. We had a lot of standard ammo, but if we did have targets, we would use the armor-piercing stuff. And from my experience on the ranges and doing a lot of training, it'll shred any standard boat. I mean, they're all thin aluminum, thin steel, fiberglass. That's why stateside, the 50 cal isn't a standard. We use the 240, the 7.62 round a lot more. A little more accurate, much more controllable, and your weapon safety rules, know your target and what's beyond it. Well, it's a little more clear.
Before we get too much into the weeds, give us a good story. Well, your favorite story from the pirate stuff or whatever.
You want my favorite story, or how about
you can think about it. You can think about it.
I was going to give you an option because I've got a good fun story, and then I've got the two stories behind how I was medically retired. I got two versions of the story, and it's usually pretty good.
Really?
But I'll let you guys decide.
Well, let's go. I don't want to get too much into the weeds. We got to have a short story.
Okay.
So think of a short one.
Okay.
And then we're going to cover on this podcast what we started for was I want to cover antennas. So we just released our new version of the Tuff skin antennas, which are the color.
Awesome.
Yeah, you got some, right? You've seen them in
I got one, to try out.
The prototype. We got them in last week. And I want to talk about the antennas and the antenna build and how some of that, you'd think it's just pretty basic, which it used to be pretty basic, but there's a lot of history sometimes in antennas. And so I want to go through and I don't know, we're going to record this so that we can put it on the video, but I got a bunch of different antennas here that we've been collecting. I don't know if you can see all these. These are all different types of antennas from different suppliers and stuff that we're going to go over, and I want to kind of take a quick, I'm dropping shit all over the place. And then I wanted to cover, these are our Tuff skin antennas along with Garmin's antennas. Before this podcast, I ran into our service shop, and I told Mike, I said, I want the most effed up antennas that got chewed on. So I got a bunch of antennas that were chewed on a little bit, and you can see, because I want to see the difference between our green Tuff skins and the new, what I'm hoping the new ones are going to hold up like, and see if I can claim if they're chew-proof. So stand by. Anyways.
I mean, I've got a teething Australian Shepherd at home and two teething children. We could send one home and let them test it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we got plenty of customers right now that have been terrorizing our antennas for years. I don't think like I said, I'll just let the cat out of the bag. I don't think we're going to claim these are chew proof. They're not chew proof. Like, I don't think we can make an antenna that's chew proof. So
just a solid steel rod poking out of the side of the collar.
Yeah, even then, dogs will be like, whatever. So, anyways, the big thing about our antennas is the color, which, let me grab one here. This is one of the antennas we had on our website, and it was a colorful antenna. We had them in different colors, and I've never really liked this style where it's really, really whippy. You know what I mean? There's no...
It's like a wet spaghetti noodle.
Mm-hmm.
Is there ways to secure that to the collars and keep it from whipping around, or do you need it?
Some people zip tie them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But does it need to be extended out for signal, or does that really matter?
I don't think it matters that much.
Okay.
I wouldn't say there's a couple things we did wrong, and I've explained this to a lot of customers. One is the manufacturer company person who makes these, right? They call them an extended range antenna. And so I don't know who. I'm not going to blame names. I know it wasn't me. And I'm going to say it probably wasn't Jason, because Jason's not a technical person. He don't mess with the computer or the website too much, although I try to get him to do more. But anyways, we messed up and we used that language. We called this an extended range antenna on our website for about a year. This is how long they've been selling these. And so when I seen that last week or 2 weeks ago, I was like, holy shit. Like, that's not how I would describe this antenna. The word extended range antenna kind of dates back to like some of the very first Garmin collars that came out, like the DC30 and DC40. They had a copper coil wrapped antenna that would often break, and it was much shorter. You know, it was maybe, God, it had to be like 17 inches, 16 inches in length. And so a lot of us, houndsmen started making these cable style antennas that were getting better range than what Garmin was providing on the DC30 and the DC40 antenna. And they were also more durable. And so the word extended range antenna alone wasn't necessarily incorrect, but it was outdated, meaning everything we sell now, this antenna, I wouldn't consider extended range antenna versus what we sell on a 15X or, a TT15 or a Mini or a DC50. Any of those are going to have about the same distance, same type of antenna. So I don't think you're getting any performance difference on those. And so that was strike number one. When I looked at that, I was like, crap, how many people do we mislead by having that, you know what I mean? That name there. So that was the first thing. The second thing is it's a thicker build. So it's much thicker than any antenna we've offered previously, especially considering our current Tuff skins. Are you still hearing this okay?
Yeah, I hear you, but it just kicked me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And so the thickness of the cable can be challenging for some people to get into the antenna keeper. You know what I mean? If I have one here, like the hole, so it fits, but man, it's you got to work it.
It's tight.
Probably need a little bit of soap, whatever. But so that was another thing that was like, we had a lot of customers like, man, I had a really hard time getting that through the holes in the antenna keeper. You were asking earlier about how to hold it in position. That's what these guys do, is they hold it in position. And so they would work. And the third thing is the flexibility. So I always worry that as my dog's running,
you're about putting your eye out.
I'm going to hurt myself.
They're flogging themselves.
Yeah, I'm like, man, so those are three things I don't like about this antenna that we offered. Is number one, we labeled it wrong on our website. That's our fault. We shouldn't have done that. Number two, we should have probably explained the diameter and the thickness and the fact that it's a little bit thicker. And number three, we should have explained that it's much more flexible than the antennas that we currently sold, which is what we would call our original Tuff skin antennas. So after thinking about it, we made the decision that it was like, we're going to call every single customer that bought one of these antennas, and we offered to replace them with our new colorful tough skin. I don't know. What are we calling these, Jason?
I think that just the Tuff Skin version 2.
Version 2 color? I don't know. Whatever we're calling them. So we made a list. I asked Jess to pull numbers and see every single customer that's ordered one of these antennas, and we offered them to replace it.
And Buddy was on the phone for 2 days.
2 days.
Pretty much 2 days straight between the two of us.
I'm done with phone calls for the next 2 years. I'm good.
He wasn't joking when he said he needed to get on the phone more. He just hammered it all out in 2 days. So
yeah, just get on. It was good for me. I enjoyed talking with some of the customers. That was awesome. Connecting and listening.
Everybody's in good moods when you're giving free stuff too.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody turned it down. Not a one of them turned down free stuff.
But there was a couple of them that were pretty like sketchy in the beginning. When you get a call from an 855 number, you know, like,
and I sound like a recording anyway, apparently, when I answer the phone.
Yeah, you'd call up and you'd be like, "Hey, is Joe there?" And you're like, maybe."
Who wants to know?
Yeah, who wants to know? Trust, I'm not collecting bills today. Not a bill collector. I'm just here to offer free shit. Once you talk to him and explain what the deal was, I had some customers that are like, "Yeah, I threw that thing away. I hated that thing. You know, I put it on, didn't like it, threw it in the trash." And I'm like, "Well, perfect. That's what we're calling you about. We want to get that replaced." I had some customers that were like, "No, I like the idea that it's whippy." And so I'm like, as with everything, there's no agreement on anything. So there's some customers that like this type of antenna, and there's some
majority did not.
Majority, I would say, do not.
How far back did you guys go as far as a year? Okay.
A year. Yeah, we went back a whole year, and every antenna that we sold with this type. So if you look, and so here's our orange one. If you bring a little bit of, I'm gonna just coil them a little bit because that's what I would do when I put them on. So you can see that our orange antennas hold some stiffness or whatever, so that they're don't move. Erect. You know what I mean? Like
they hold their form much better.
Yes. There you go. Whatever.
The technical term.
and it's important for a couple of different reasons. Man, you got some noise going back in the background, Jason.
I can mute it.
It's anarchy.
Yeah, you got a revolt happening, Jason.
That and 8 puppies is probably not helping.
Anyways, so one of the things that I wanted to get fixed was the firmness or whatever the technical term of that is to fix this antenna, was getting it where it sticks up. So if you have it up, it's going to stick up, and as the dog's running, it's not going to whip the dog in the face. So that's accomplishment number 1. Now there's a couple things I want to cover on this, and this is where it kind of gets in the technical weeds and why I want to do a podcast on it, because it's a long format. So there's several different ways you can get rigidness out of it. There's 2 major ways, right? One is the cable inside the coating, right? And the second is using the coating. So there's 2 components of an antenna. The steel cable and the coating, right? You follow me? You nod. Yep. Okay. What's dangerous, and I'm going to give you a little bit of insider information about a dangerous way of doing it by getting the cable stick, because I've done that like about 10 years ago. We had some red antennas that we used a sturdy cable with a flexible PVC type coating. And so we got the rigidness that we wanted. We were like, "Oh yeah, these are going to be awesome." And we were like, you're sitting around looking at them like, these are going to be the best antennas ever. We're going to sell piles of them. And what happened was we sold quite a few of them. Luckily, we weren't as big as we are now. But as the dog ran, it wiggled and it put a stress point. And it was about 3.5 inches up. The antenna started snapping off. And you want to talk about puckering up. You know, the first time you're like, "Oh, that can't happen." You know what I mean? You're like, "Yeah, it was a fluke."
You did something absolutely wild. This is a 1 in a million.
Right,
Good job, bud.
Your dog's kind of weird. He must run funny. He must be like a 3-legged dog that runs weird backwards and shit. You know what I mean? You can't break a cable. I mean, that cable's rated at so many weight. And then the second call came in. Same thing, 3.5 inches. I'm like,
So that must have been right at the point where that keeper on the collar kind of stops and it starts getting free
This was
play.
long before DC
okay.
50s, so long before these keepers. This was in the DC 30, DC 40 days. This was the beginnings of tough skin development. You know what I mean? Like this was Garmin hadn't gone to tough skins yet. We were changing Garmin's collars because Garmin's collars were breaking, and the way Garmin's collars would break on the DC 30s and 40s, it was a copper wire that was wound around a little white coating.
Okay.
And so they would break that little copper wire, but you wouldn't know it because the coating, the rubber housing hit it. And so we would have a lot of customers that would have no range, and we'd be like, yeah, your antenna's broke. They're like, no, it isn't. I can see it's great. And I'm like, no, really. It's broke on the inside. You can't see it. And so we were going to replace with cable. And the first ones we replaced were that galvanized coating you could get at the hardware store. You know what I mean? Basically like this is nice, super whippy. It's got a clear coating. You get that stuff at the hardware store, no problem, right?
You're basically just like plastic dipping it.
Yeah. And so, but again, that whipped the dog and it wasn't great. And so we wanted to go with a stiffer cable. And so we went and had some cable built, and we used a 1x7 cable build, which was very similar to this. It was thick. You know, I don't want to say too thick, but it had some form to it. But after the second call, the third call, the fourth call, where people were breaking that antenna off 3.5 inches up, I mean, honestly, it was like, oh shit, we got this is a problem. You know what I mean? So that was our lesson. So we learned the hard way why you shouldn't build a cable. And I got one of our competitors' cables in my hand, a cable like this. You know what I mean? So this is a cable that is out there that they're getting their stiffness, their rigidness. They're getting it from the cable. So the coating is flexible, but the cable is where the form, whatever. You got to come up with a better name for me.
Rigidity.
Rigidity. I can't even say that word, but we'll try that one.
The
The rigidity comes from their stainless steel cable. So, you follow me, Jason? You follow me?
Oh, yeah, I'm following
Mike?
you.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a look at Garmin's, because Garmin does a good job of...
Their construction on the antennas is nice.
So Garmin's antennas, I had one tore apart. Let me find
There's
it here.
just a pile of cables over there.
Yeah, I
There's
got
like
a pile
50
of...
antennas for people who don't watch the
Okay.
video. He's just got this massive antenna.
You can see, yeah. So you can see this is a Garmin factory antenna. So I tore one apart. The first thing I can tell you is the cable is flexible, right? So I can bend. I mean, I can shrink it to there. If I look at that cable I had in my hand, which is a competitor's, see, it's starting to kink. It doesn't want to go much more than that. If I take Garmin's, you can see I can get a really nice tight loop before it flops out. So the cable is going to be flexible, right? But if you look at the coating side, the coating is what gives it the rigidness.
Rigidity.
Yeah, the rigidity. That sounds professional and shit. I like it. Okay. Makes sense? So 2 ways of building your rigidity in your cable. The way I don't recommend, the way I did it, I mean, here, young buddy, young W, we're going to screw some...
You sold a bunch of them, too.
Not nearly as many as we would have, like today. I
They got me figured that one out.
I don't want to make that mistake today.
Yeah, but it's not a bad thing early on to learn. Is you have this brilliant idea and it works great until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're backtracking, figure out what's wrong, and now you've opened up a new path of understanding how these antennas work, all these different features. So now brings you to the product you have today.
Exactly. And that's the hard part is if you just look at this cable, and so this is one that I've seen online, and I'll tell you, I got 2 of these. And it was funny. I was heading to Michigan, and I was listening to I was on Facebook or something on the plane ride going to Michigan for Michigan Bear Hunter Association, and I was seeing these posts about these antennas stick up. You know what I mean? You want an antenna that sticks up in the air, and they're really bragging on the fact that the antenna sticks up. And so I'm on my plane, I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I wonder how they're doing that. You know what I mean? Like there's two ways of doing it. There's the way that we did it the first time, which sucked. You know what I mean? Like, and we learned our lesson the hard. I always say we do it nice because we do it twice. You know what I mean? First time we screwed it up, and the second time,
measure once, cut twice.
Yeah, exactly. So, I was just thinking in my head, I was like, yeah, they are. They do have a valid point that if the antenna's sticking up, you should get better range. I mean, you know, I don't know how much, but that's a good thing to have is your antenna sticking up in the air. The higher the antenna, the better range you're going to get. I do agree with that form of thinking. But in my head, I'm thinking there's two ways of doing that. You know what I mean? Like, I learned the hard way. There's two ways of doing it.
Right way and wrong way.
So I'm sitting there in Michigan, and no shit. I mean, I'm just sitting there, and this guy walks up to me, and I don't want to use a name or anything, and he comes up to me and goes, he's kicking tires. You know what I mean? I can tell he's, you know, wanting to talk, but he comes up to me and he's like, so he grabs one of our green antennas. He goes, so these, do you think these will stick up? You know what I mean? And I'm thinking, I know what I said, yeah, you looked at that Facebook post, didn't you? And he looks at me like, what? And I go, you know, and I explained to him, I said, man, I'm telling you, I wish I could get my hands on the guy who's selling them won't sell me one. I know he won't. Like, he'd cancel my order if I tried to buy one.
I wonder why.
He don't like me, but I was like, and I was honest with him. I said, I don't know how they're doing it. I said, I haven't seen one of their antennas. And I said, I learned the hard way. There's two ways to do that. And I'm not going to make the mistake twice. So I said, if he's doing it right, absolutely great. And he goes, well, there's two antennas over here on the they donated. And I'm like, really? Because I went to the I normally when I show up to these banquets, I'll buy some raffle tickets. I want to support the club, so I always try to buy some raffle tickets and
you mean you're just trying to get a hold of the competitor's product?
Yeah, but he wouldn't sell me one. And I had already spent all my raffle tickets, so I'm like, son of a bitch! Like, I just went through 200 raffle tickets. I would have put them all on his antennas. It'd be like everyone they would have, because he had some of the big antennas, like truck antennas. Anybody that listens, they know who I'm talking about, but. It had some big. There's some drama there behind it, but anyways, he had the big antennas, and he had these antennas, and the antennas were underneath, so you didn't see the collar antennas. But I was sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, that'd have been some funny shit. They would have been raffling off the raffle prizes, and anybody that knows the drama would have been like, Buddy Woodbury, winner. It would be this antenna. All 5 antennas that he donated. I would have been like, Buddy Woodbury. I would put all 200 tickets in that one bucket, and everybody in the room would have been like, man. But he really wants those antennas.
Yeah.
Anyways, I had already spent all my tickets, so I didn't put a single ticket in there because I didn't want to be awkward when this guy's donations not being a dick.
Oh, then don't take me anywhere because you'd be like, I want that. I'd be like, let's go. I'm doing this.
I didn't have to. This is the best part about it is I'm sitting there at the show and that guy walks back over to me. He just hands one and sets it on my desk, on my table, and I'm like. Son of a bitch. He goes, you want it? It's yours. And he just hands it to me. And I'm like, and so there was 2 of them there. And so the next one, I seen who won it, and it was another friend. And I'm like, hey, do you really want that antenna? I got a couple here. So he's like, nope, it's yours. So I got both antennas that were donated at that event. I walked out with both of them. How that happens, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, man, I'm sorry. I feel bad. I should
timing. It's all timing.
Apologize. No shit. 30 hours from seeing that post, I have 2 of them in my hands. Like, how does that happen? I don't know. It's pretty cool. So anyways, he brings it over to me. I take my knife off my pocket, and because I told him, I said I wanted to do. I mentioned it before I bought it. I said I always like to dissect things. I took my knife and I skinned it, and this is the antenna. And they're building it differently. I'm going to be very honest. The cable that I built was a 1x7 build. This is a 1x21 build, I think, for the cable build.
So 21 individual strands.
Yep, 21 individual solid core strands. And so they are getting the stiffness out of the cable, which I don't like. I won't sell this antenna. Mine broke within a couple months. My suspicion is these might break. They'll last longer than the red ones that I built early on because I had 7 solid cores They got 21. So I think there is some more flexibility on these.
More give.
I think there's some more give. Maybe they last all years and years and years. I don't know. I'm not taking the gamble. But I will tell you, if they break a couple months, a year from now, it's a world of hurt for people. You know what I mean? Like, knowing what I went through.
I think it would depend on how long they last, because you look at things like service life. Depending on how much it's ran or the use it gets, that could just be the product's service life. Maybe it gets a year, or if you're running it hard, maybe it gets 6 months.
Well, I'll be honest with you. That's not an acceptable answer for me. If my dog's out in the woods and it breaks an antenna off during a hunt, that's a failure I don't want. So whether that's a year from now, whether that's 2 years from now, whether that's 4 years from now, I don't want my antenna breaking. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, that makes sense.
And you go back, like you had mentioned the zip tying thing. In my opinion, something like that, or the old Tuff skins. Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw it a lot because obviously I had my own shop going, so I was kind of doing the same thing Buddy was doing and trying to find the best antennas. And the guys that zip tie antennas, those stiffer cables, I think that they feel it the worst, because that is an immediate pivot point, and it's a flex point. So those cables are going to rock right there, and that's where they'll snap every time, is right at a zip tie.
Yep. So all that story to tell, number one, I got a good chuckle out of it that within 30 hours I got to dissect the antenna I wanted. A couple other things. I'm not just picking on their antenna. There's a couple antennas here. I got actually Mike handed me 2 antennas here, which is like, they're called a Glow Tuff. These were off of a DC-30, so I don't know if this design's changed anymore. But again, most of the antennas I see on the market have more flexibility to them, and I see a lot of them come up with the different coating that you like, and so. This is I think that what they call the super antenna. You know what I mean? Like, it's got a little more flex. It's better than the noodles that we were selling. You know what I mean? So there's just a ton of different antennas out there, and they're all built a little bit differently. So what we did, and what I did, was I kind of took a look at all how they were built, and we went with, so we should just talk about our green ones. Our original green Tuff skins, which will probably end of life. There's no benefit. The functional part of the antenna is the cable, right? So the cable, the stainless steel part, we use stainless steel. Not everybody uses stainless steel. Some people use galvanized.
Is there, radio signals is basically electricity. Is there a conductivity difference between the materials?
There is. And let me get back to that in a minute, because I got another thought that I'm playing with, but I'm worried about that. So don't let me forget to circle back on that. I want to talk about copper. But we use a stainless steel 316 cable. I don't know what the specs of Garmin is. I suspect it's very similar. It looks almost exactly the same. So I think Garmin's using a 316 stainless steel cable. Again, they're not giving me specs on their build. A lot of this. I'm just gonna just say that the antenna that I worry about with stiffness, they're using, it looks like a stainless steel. I don't think it's 3/16. It's a little bit more brighter when I look at it, so it's a little different. I'm not gonna say that 3/16 stainless steel is the only stainless steel that people need to use. It's just the one that we use. It's a really good build. It holds up, oxidization, stuff like that. And then there's some, if I look at like the antennas that I don't like, which those are like a galvanized cable. So the
old school standard telemetry collar antenna.
Yep. Standard telemetry collars, what you can get at the hardware store, those types of things. When I look at this, you can see that it's a galvanized. And actually, I'm not a good cable expert, so I don't know if the antenna, the guy that doesn't like me, if he's using galvanized. I don't think it is. I think it's somewhere between a galvanized and a stainless build. But the really whippy ones are using galvanized cable. So that's not going to determine the strength of the cable. It's going to determine the conductivity of the cable. And I haven't seen a ton of difference between using galvanized, using stainless steel for the function of an antenna. Meaning, somebody might get a little bit better range out of this one or that one, but we're not going to say, oh, you're going to get better range out of anything, because antennas just, they make us liars. Every time I try to talk about antenna distance.
I mean, I do know that, you galvanize something to protect it, because your carbon steel is going to rust quicker. It's going to degrade quicker. Stainless is going to, essentially, it's not supposed to rust, but still can, but it's going to last longer. Your galvanized material is a little cheaper, but it's more susceptible to corrosion.
Right. Yeah. And so that's why we pick stainless steel. We build off of stainless steel because I want them to last long. Even if it gives me a little bit of signal degradation. You know what I mean? If I lose a little bit of signal, but I have an antenna that works, and again, I'll cover this a little bit more on different materials, but we've chosen to go stainless steel because I want a long-lasting antenna. I don't want failures at a year. I don't want failures at a year and a half. You know what I mean? I don't want antennas breaking. I want them to last for a long time.
Stainless steel is a hard metal, but if you do get somebody that calls you in 6 months and says, hey, this thing broke, okay, that's weird. And then that's just when you start, what happened? What were you doing? It may be a crazy one-off, or, you catch the pattern early. But most of the time with stuff like stainless steel, like it denting or it breaking, it's like, okay, you did something wild. We need to talk about it and figure out what happened, because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That's why they had a guarantee.
I mean, we give a 2-year warranty on our collars, and we'll stand by our antennas. So.
Not collars, collar antennas, tough skin antennas, W branded.
So to circle back, that's the coating, right? 3/16 stainless steel cables, what ours are built of. The other ones are built with different galvanized, different forms of stainless, it looks like. There's some that are built solid core, like I said, this one is a 1x27 build. This one that is really flexible is a little bit of a thicker cable, and it's even more than ours as far as flexibility, and so it's just it makes a big difference on the build. The second portion of the collar antennas is the coating, okay? And so this is where, if you put a flexible cable, this galvanized cable with a flexible, what this is called a PVC coating. So a lot of our leashes and leads are made out of this PVC coating. It's, if I dig my nails into it, I can dig into the coating, right? So it's a soft, what they call a PVC coating. That gives it it's not going to break, but it's really wiggly. There's no rigidness to it. Easy to strip. I can take my knife on this soft PVC coating.
Oh man! Just cut it right up.
I just cut it right off. So you can see on there. One slice with the knife,
like
my fingernails, and I just strip it, right? So I stripped this flexible coating with a PVC coating very easily. Okay, so that's PVC coating. A lot of antennas are using PVC coating. If I take another one, this Glow Tuff, okay? I don't know who makes this one. I think it may be Outdoor Dogs by Sorry Billy. I like Billy, but I can tell you. And these antennas,
OSHA's not going to watch this video, are they?
Yep. So again, I can take my knife and I can just slice it, and there's a little bit of. So this is I think this is a PVC coating, but I think it's a more infused. So if I look at it,
well, I mean, and that's not. I'm brand new to I don't want to say the hunting world, but the hunting world with dogs. And from one of the most dangerous things someone can say, from my experience, like being out in the field, or going out in the woods and seeing something that can cut easily, that's a barbed wire snag, a stick or a stone abrasion away from. Now your coating's ripped. Now you've exposed your stuff to corrosion, to moisture. To me, like seeing that, I'm obviously biased because I work here, but I'm like, I don't necessarily like that. I don't see the long term of a coating like that.
So this antenna, I have not torn one of these apart. I just did it on the air. It was a little bit harder of a PVC coating than than the ones that I would say the leashes are made out of, and the ones that we sold previously. I still think it's a PVC coating. It's got a little bit of infused into the cable. And the one thing I will say about this antenna is this may be redeveloped because this came off a DC-30, and there's no physical way a guy's going to get this on a TT-15. So this antenna is too thick to fit on a TT-15. So I might be looking at an antenna that's no longer available. I don't know, but that would be one. If I take a look at the second build, so those are PVC coatings. Normally you can tell a PVC coating because you take your thumbnail and you can dig into the antenna. So it's just soft. If you grab the antenna and you dig into it, your fingernail's not gonna start cutting that plastic coating, okay? The second type of coating is urethane. So that's where our green antennas came in at. So we went back to the drawing board because we went with a rigid antenna the first time with a PVC red coating. We came up with an antenna that broke, and this was 12 years ago or whatever it was. We went back to the drawing board, worked with companies, and came up with a flexible cable, but used the coating to get the form out of it. And so we came up with a polyurethane coating. And so if you take your fingernails and try to dig into that, you're just not going to. It's much harder.
It's a lot harder.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you take a knife. I'm not saying you can't cut it, right? But your knife's going to want to slide off of it. Whereas on a PVC coating, it really starts to dig in a little bit, right? So the hardness of the coating is much more rough. The second thing is, and I got to try and not cut myself here, but when I cut it, like my first cut didn't even go down to the cable, right? I got to take 2 stabs because I'm cutting and I got to whittle it. So I'm almost, I can't get my knife blade to sit on the cable and strip it. So stripping this is really difficult because it's infused into the cable.
Permeated into the cable.
Exactly. It's really hard to get the coating off of this cable. I'm not just going to take and go and strip the whole thing like I did on some of our competitors' antennas. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying what it is. It's a different type of coating. When they build these antennas are built on the coating. The downside to polyurethane, which is the cap, there's only one glue that works with polyurethane. It's expensive, it smells like shit, and it still doesn't do great. So the caps want to come off of these antennas. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. I don't have a better way of capping this with a polyurethane. We have to use a special glue that we have to order in bulk. And when you open that glue, we have to do a bunch of antennas, and then we throw the glue away. I mean, it's like a one-time use glue, and it's a pain in the ass. I don't like it. So, but it does what we want. It gets the cable to be flexible, the coating to hold the form, and we make shift with our cap on the best we can by trying to glue them on with the special glue. The downside, there's no bright colors in this. I can't get a bright color in this type of build, right? So we went with the green, the dark green, which thousands of people know about these green Tuff skin antennas. We get them in all the time. A lot of people use this antenna. They work great. You know what I mean? The hardness of it is good, and so that's been what we've had forever. So from there, I would go to Garmin's antenna. Okay? This is what the Garmin antenna looks like. You can notice it's got a shiny coating, so it's different. You can't run your fingernails in it. It's hard like a polyurethane, but it's not polyurethane, right? I thought it always was. It's a different type of plastic. I'm not even going to tell you what plastic it is because I don't want people copying it. They'll find out. They'll figure it out. Like, whoever wants to do this, it's not rocket science. I've seen a couple competitors that have this type of coating. It's got a shiny coating to it. It's nice and hard. If I try to strip it, it strips like a polyurethane. Really difficult. Like I'm having to put a lot of force and try not to cut myself. And it's wanting to not strip big pieces, right? So I'm having to whittle pieces down with a knife. I don't know if you can see that or not. You know what I mean? So I have to whittle that down. I'll grab a different one and show you. Here's a good one. I'll show you again what a PVC coating does. Look, see, I just stripped that right on there. I can't
make rafts
do that.
out of PVC. Like it's really flexible.
So
Yeah,
I'm not exaggerating when I'm trying to cut these. You know what I mean? Like I'm literally trying to strip it, and if I do it slow, I can start to get it that way. But I really, it wants to kick off the knife. So that's polyurethane. And when I try and do a Garmin collar, which is a different type of, I'm trying not to cut my thumb because this would be bad on the podcast.
So no, it's just when he edits it, puts a little Band-Aid
we'll
over the knife.
Yeah, I got it down to the cable a little bit, but I'm going to have to just whittle on that to get the cable exposed.
Can I get those? Just so I can try and play with them.
Yeah.
See how they cut.
And even when you strip them, it still leaves that little bit.
There you go. There's 3. There's a hardened plastic. There's a PVC plastic, and then there's our polyurethane plastic. And so there's different types of coating that you can do. So the key component of this is we're getting.
Notice I'm cutting away from myself. You were.
Yeah, that's because I don't have any.
You have
choice.
proper training.
You should see my wife with a knife. I think I'm bad. She cuts steak, and I'm like, you're cutting the steak wrong, man. Don't chop like that. I like a sharp knife. I'm like anal about sharpening my knife.
Don't look at this one. This one needs a touch up.
Yeah, no, I need to touch my knife up anyways. I always keep a sharp knife, and we keep a sharpener here in the shop because I'll be over here like sharpen my knife. It's an art. Anyways, so at this point, I think I've hammered home the differences in how you can build the cable. I can tell you that we have bright colors on all our new antennas. These new Tuff antennas, we're going to have bright colors. I might even get, I don't even want to say it. We might even get to glow in the dark. I don't know. We're playing. I'm going to let it out. Whatever. So I'm playing with that to see if we can't get to a glow in the dark color. So, but the big thing is they're built right. Okay. I didn't build them with a PVC coating. I didn't build them with a stiff cable that could snap and break. We went to the drawing board and did them right. So that's the one thing about these is if you have any issues with them, if you have any problems, I want you to give us a call. Let's circle back around and talk about the one question I have, and I've thought about trying to improve the performance, and the way I would do that, and I didn't even talk to you, Jason, about this. I don't think, have I?
A little about copper.
Yeah,
we talked briefly.
Okay, so I've thought about doing a copper build, and I got a quote out to have these built in copper with a good coating. So they'd be built the same, but they'd built with copper, which should be electrically lower resistance, which in the antenna world, more power would go out the antenna rather than get on the load of the antenna. So by the books, a copper antenna should perform better than a stainless steel antenna.
Now, is that solid copper or copper lined or wrapped with copper? Okay.
It would be. I wouldn't do a solid copper because it would break.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like that. It'd be no point. I really am adverse to breaking antennas. When you get a customer that calls and says, "Oh, my dog come back with an antenna that's broken."
Well, yeah, and you could potentially lose what you're hunting, you're tracking, your dog. There's a lot of consequences to it.
Right. So I don't like. I'm not going to build an antenna that breaks. Right. And my concern with copper, and I've done a lot of research on it, the distance that we're measuring these antennas, the resistivity of that short of an antenna run is not that much of a difference. So we might see, looking at the research of people who've tried different antennas at different wavelengths than what we're dealing with, we might see less than half of a dB of gain, which is almost hardly nothing. It'd be really hard to measure that low of a dB. So maybe you could get a little bit better performance out of using copper, but the risks with using copper, that in my head, everybody's seen those truck ones that are all corroded and they got shit on them. You know what I mean? They turn green.
Copper, brass, all of that is the bane of anybody in a seagoing service that has had to deal with copper or brass, it corrodes.
Yep.
Out in the woods, it's not a dry desert.
Yep.
It's wet, and that corrosion is a solid copper or a large amount of copper compared to another metal. I mean, you're running into corrosion, but also the two metals touching is going to create its own type of corrosion. So there's a lot to look at.
So my concern is in the short term, I could get an antenna that performs better, but after a couple months, after a year, after a certain time period, it may perform worse than stainless steel because of the environmental effects on it. So I'm like, you know what? I mean, we could come out the gate and be like, oh, we got an antenna that gets 10% better. You know what I mean? And be like, yeah, we can show you. When you put a new antenna on, you're going to get 10% better. But after 3 months, maybe that's different. You know what I mean? That's my So a lot of these times, I mean, it's easy to jump on the bandwagon and look at the short problem and go, oh man, we could use copper. Just like you said, well, can you use copper? Yeah, there are things we can do, but
that's why a lot of these antennas you see on bigger applications are completely sealed off. They're waterproof. They're world proof because the manufacturers know that you get moisture in that copper or those mixed materials, and you lose performance. You lose, there's a lot of things that happen, and that gets expensive.
But it in that realm, the dog hunter is much more detrimental to their equipment than any ham radio guy, any application, even in the military. I mean, I would put the use and abuse that a dog puts stuff through is rougher than the military. Like Garmin has physically said their worst customer is the dog. They just don't
care.
The dog don't give a shit that you put the $350 collar on it.
They should spend some more time with some Marines who have been drinking because they'll destroy anything in their path.
But they still don't give a shit compared to a dog. My dog is like, 350? Put two of them bitches on me, and I'm going to run through this. Come here.
It's a chew toy. It's whatever it needs to be.
You know that's like $350, right? And he just looks at me like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, let's roll. Let's go. So that part of it is tough sometimes for companies. And I know, I mean, Garmin they have a wide range of stuff. They do have military contracts. They got helicopters. They got aviation. They got whatever. And they have point blank said the hardest customer they have to please is the dog. The dog is the most aggressive and thing that beats their stuff up almost. And maybe it's changed, but you know what I mean? Like they go through the water. They don't care what they're wearing on their neck.
No, they're more goal oriented than people because they will go. You put a person through a situation, they're like, I don't know about that.
That could hurt me.
A dog says, master says do this, I go.
Yeah. So anyways, a lot of times, like thinking about the copper, and I have a bid out to get copper, and I think I'm going to talk myself out of it because I'm worried about the long term repercussions. If like I could get a little bit of here, but I think the long term cost of what copper would do to performance is going to cost. Honestly, it just cost me reputation. A year later, people are going to be like, "Those antennas suck." You know what I mean?
You're talking a half dB, isn't that what you said?
Probably.
I mean, think of how much resistance you can build up in a copper antenna over a year, and you're going to be below par.
Yep. So I think out the gate we would be able to show it. So if you see this, and like I said, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not.
Or for our arid customers, the guys in the Southwest, or
I don't think it matters.
Be a decent option.
I don't think it's going to matter.
Well, that's the thing with any moisture gets in there, gets trapped. Because I mean, like, there's no point even. Let's take away the parts where we cut it, but if the cap seals perfectly, it never comes off, and it's got a good seal. You've still got this area that could be exposed, and once moisture gets in there, degradation is just it's going to compound hot, cold, heat.
Have you ever chased down a shitty wire in a truck? And you'll go down 3 feet and be like, oh, I bet you it's good right here. And you cut that shit off and it's like still bad. You know what I mean? Like sometimes that stuff. I don't want
to think about that. I got to change out a blinker light on my bumper and I know it's a wire. I just don't want to chase it. Like
you're chasing a trailer, wiring on a trailer or whatever. And it's like you can go 10 feet from the edge of that wire and it still is crap. So I have zero I have zero confidence that I can stop it in 1.5 feet. If I can't stop it on the trailer, if they can't figure out the trailer, when you ever rewire a trailer and you cut that shit in the middle of 10 feet and you're like, man, it looks green and it's oxidized, and you're like, dude, does this thing even work? It doesn't even look like a wire anymore.
Yeah,
I have
you
zero doubt.
Replace it, you snake it back through, everything's perfect.
Yeah.
You go 5 miles down the road and you're back to the same problem, and you're just hitting your head against something.
So I don't want to bring that problem in. So I've thought about copper, but the more I think about it, the more I think it's a bad idea. And which is rare for me, because normally I'm like, this is a great idea, and I learned the hard way. I'm starting to get to where I'm like, let me think this through a little bit more. You know what I mean? So anyways, that's my little tidbit on that. Is after thinking it through, I'm like, yeah, maybe that's not the best idea. Normally I would have just ordered it and done it.
But you think things differently now. There's a big difference, and I think antennas is a prime example of a quick nickel and a slow dime. Like everybody jumps on the bandwagon and they throw something out there because they all work. Like, let's be real about it. Extended range when it comes to collar antennas, there's not a lot of range difference between any of them at this point. Would you say, buddy?
No, I think the extended range language comes back from the DC-30 and DC-40 days. When you're comparing it,
people's minds.
If for those old guys that remember what a DC-30 antenna came with, what a DC-40 antenna came with, yes, we could prove better range in those comparisons. But coming off the line with a TT15X or a mini collar or whatever, I'm not going to be able to put an antenna on that collar that performs any better, and normally not any worse. In the configurations that we're doing.
It's like they do it with social media. They do it with, I think for old infomercials, there's buzzwords. There's things that might actually stay sharper 15% long. 15% of what? How long does that last? So they're using those because everybody wants that longer range, that guarantee. So, they put like a Tommy Boy, you put the warranty on the box so they can see it.
Right.
It's those buzzwords. It's those things that warm and fuzzy people want. And yes, there may be some truth, but it's also they know how the mind works and what to say.
And I was going to say, like, for a reference, Mike, and anybody who doesn't know the old days of the DC-30s and 40s, like, look at any of your factory VHF antennas on the handhelds.
Right.
Like, very, very similar construction.
Yeah, my first cell phone had a little Motorola, and it had a little antenna, and that antenna broke, and you lost everything. But you would open it up a little bit, and suddenly you got signal everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, same thing. You technology changes, and extended range could mean 30 feet, could mean 10 miles, and it's very hard for the average person to prove that.
Yeah, and that's why durability is the big thing, I think, in the antenna world, and that's why I know it's so important. Well, it's a buddy. You got dogs. I don't like looking for lost dogs,
So it matters for all of it. The antennas on the collars are definitely, I want folks to think about how and what. And I'm not saying that these antennas that I have are going to break. I mean, they're built differently than the ones that we built 10 years ago. I don't know. I hope that they don't for them, because, man, that's a hard lesson to learn. I learned it. Luckily, if I had to learn that lesson today, you know what I mean? Like replacing, I don't know how many tens.
Think of how much cheaper it was to learn back then than it would be to learn now.
How many times I bet you a couple 100 antennas we replaced. Me and Jason have called back customers and said, you know what? We screwed up. We messed up on these. Some people got exactly what they wanted. Some people, what they received was not what they expected, based on the language that our website said, and based on the expectations of knowing what our green ones were, right? So they had experience with our green ones, they had experience with Garmin, and then they look at our website and go, oh, extended range antenna, and they're colorful. They expected something similar, and I apologize. That was I own that. Like, we messed up, and we made the decision to go back and replace every single one. And it was a little more, luckily, I mean, we've sold tens of thousands of the green ones, you know what I mean? So I know, I have very high confidence that our build on these don't break. Like,
I will say, because this you mentioned this, a little bit in the interview, and then before I actually started, I saw this on social media, and this is something I talked to my wife about. Was you'd mentioned that the owning your mistakes or going back on it, and then seeing this online before I even stepped in the door to work here, and I asked somebody about it, and to me, like that's the type of people I want to be around. The environment I want to work around is, hey, we really messed up, and let us make this right because that there's a difference between, oh, I broke the wrench, I'm sorry, we'll get a new one, and hey, we kind of screwed up and we need to make it right with you guys, let's get this figured out.
I'm not going to lie. We were trying to find a way to snake out of it. I'm not going to lie. It was like, can we sell $5? We share the shipping. I mean, we had toyed around with the option, and
the plan
any of the options would have been fine. Like I would have been totally comfortable saying, hey, if you pay for the shipping, like all these companies, they like these rings. You ever seen these plastic rings that break? They're silicone based rings. And you look at them, their lifetime warranty, and it's like basically pay the $7,895 shipping, and we'll replace it for life. And I'm like, I know what they're doing. You know what I mean? I as a business owner, I'm like, okay, they're paying $4, and they get that ring made for.
I mean, I've got a
10-pack
sitting in my Amazon cart for like $8. Like, I'm not going to go through the lifetime warranty when it's just Or you go to the hardware store and grab a handful of O-rings.
So we thought about we could have done that where honestly would have cut for the shipping and stuff like that. When we looked at the numbers. The truth was almost every single customer that we looked at, some of these were really good customers, like thousands of dollars.
Or
first time customers, good experience. And we looked at it and we said, you know what? Is that customer worth the $3 to ship it? Basically, the $3 to ship it and replace it. And the answer was almost always yes. And so when it came down to that mentality of, granted, this isn't replacing $350 TT15X. I wish we could have done that, guys. You know what I mean? All the guys on the 15X collars. I apologize. I don't have deep enough pockets to do that on the scale.
We can swing an antenna, though.
You know what I mean? Like, I wish Carmen would have, there's some issues with those X collars that we had to fight through, and it was painful. But when we looked at this issue and said, this is our problem, we own this one, this is one that we kind of came to the table and said, nope, we're going to step up and we're going to cover it right on this one. So we did. We've contacted almost everybody. There's been a couple people. You know how many people have full voicemails on their phones nowadays?
Everybody. Me included.
Does anybody check their phone messages anymore? It's like, oh, your voicemail is full.
Yeah, why voicemail when you can call and then text or call, hang up, and hope they call back?
Well, yeah, they think you're calling about their car insurance or something.
Yeah, they probably seen the 855 number or 800 number, and they're like, yeah, I ain't answering that.
I don't need a free cruise.
So, free antenna's like, yeah, bullshit. No free antenna. There's no such thing as a free antenna. So I'd say there's a handful of people that we weren't able to, and we'll probably try to find other means of contacting them via email, via text, or whatever. So if you're one of them people that bought, and it's only the really bright, colorful antennas that are on our website in the last year, we're offering to replace every single one of them that was purchased on our website. I had a question online. They were like, what about the green ones? I'm like, nope, the green ones, there's no problem with the green ones. We've sold thousands and tens of thousands of green antennas. Like, we know where those are. I already learned my lesson on those. I already replaced the red ones that we broke.
How many did you do that? Do you remember how many you had to replace?
I don't, but it wasn't
fun.
It wasn't
100.
Like this.
It was under 100 probably. You know what I mean? Like, it was the scale of how many antennas we sold back then was much less. You know what I mean? Like, this was back
when you order them by the dozen and not by the freaking hundreds.
We were ordering them. No, we were ordering by the roll. So we'd order different rolls of cable and cut and build them ourselves.
It's a lot of manpower.
It was. Well, I didn't have nothing else to do. We weren't selling. We were selling some stuff, but not like we are today. Today, it's like, nope, I can't do that. So just lessons learned, man. Sometimes some lessons hurt more than others. This was one we could afford, and I'm glad we got it done. I'm tired of cold calling people, which I did enjoy talking with a lot of different. That was the best.
It was
part
cool.
Of this. It was asking them, being like, But what's your thoughts on those antennas? And you can see most of them are like their wheels are spinning. They're trying to answer the question.
I want to know what your voicemail was because they all of them that called back were very similar. And oh, buddy called me about this and this and this. You must have had it like down.
By the last, by the 200th antenna call, yeah.
Yeah, you get it.
I was like, basically I just said, hey, I have you on a list that you ordered these antennas. I know he told them what color. Yes, it looks like you ordered a green antenna and a yellow antenna. We've done some changes on that. I'd like to hear your thoughts about how they are. And then I'd like to offer to replace those antennas with our new version and see what your thoughts are with the new version. And that was basically it. I wanted to give enough so that
they call back.
And I'm horrible because I never tried to upsell. I never tried to. I seen you put a couple orders in where they're like, you had something on the order.
Yeah, like, you know how our customers are. I got you on the phone. That's my favorite line. That's my drinking game. I crack a beer every time someone says, I got you on the phone. So we threw some orders in there, and
I made it a point not to, and I should. Like this is one of those things that I was like, I called them. I didn't want people thinking that we were calling them to try to sell them more shit.
Dialing for dollars.
Exactly. Okay, we need some money.
So hear me out. We just got done watching Wolf of Wall Street, and I've got you on the phone.
We need your money. No, that was probably like the most, I'm going to be honest, most fun I've had on the phone for like those 2 days because it's easy to call and be the nice guy. Like there was nobody chewing my butt over that. Like they were just happy.
Yeah. And most, like I said, I when I got them on the phone, I was like, hey, before I put words in your mouth, what's your thoughts on those antennas? And there was a lot of them that was like, I haven't even put them on yet. I just got them for backup. There were some people that didn't have them. And then other people, I had some that were like, I threw them away. I threw them in the trash. I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad I called you today, sir. I wish you had called me. Yeah, I wish you would have called me before you threw them in the trash and told me you're throwing them in the trash. But, that was months ago. So we have some really good customers. He's like, oh, it's not your fault. I'm like, yeah, a little bit. Like, it is our fault a little bit. We didn't explain them the way we should have. And when I looked at the language and stuff that was on the website, I'm like, I was just embarrassed. I was like, I'm a little embarrassed that we let that happen.
But that's huge, though. I remember I was overseas. I'd bought a brand new product on the market, new generation of the product, the Multi-Tool Multitasker 3X. Brand new on the market. I was like, I've messed with the 2. I got to buy it. So I ordered it overseas, had this $150 multi-tool sent to me. First use, I'm cranking on a 50 cal tool, and it just snaps.
Right.
I emailed the company that night. I was like, hey, I was working on this gun. This broke. This is my model. I've got the Desert Tan with the combo serrated blade and this attachment. He's like, hey, we are completely sold out. We're not going to restock it. It's too expensive, but I'll get you a replacement. 2 days later, I am in the Middle East, and 2 days later, I have an overnight box sitting on my rack on the boat. And, since that day, if I'm buying a multi-tool or even the knife I'm carrying today, it's something from Multitasker.
Yeah.
Because they were so cool. They were honest, like, wow, we can't believe it. You broke that part. Like, we need to fix this. And now, occasionally I'll see for a while I was talking with the owner on Facebook or, he's been pretty quiet lately, but it's one of those companies that now I'm a huge fanboy because they ponied up and they made it right. So, and especially in the outdoor world, the knives, guns, hunting, all that stuff, we want a good company that's going to take care of us, and that's important.
Well, that's what we need to do. Sometimes we do great at it, sometimes not so great, and
you get on the phones with people. You stick around. You get on the phone. You'll hear about it.
We have some really good customers, and that's the beauty of it. We need to wrap this up here, but the best part about it is we have some freaking phenomenal customers, and it makes it easy when you have good customers. And I can attest that it's like, dude, I would do a shitty job trying to stand behind some products if I had to deal with a-hole customers all the time. So calling people and I had some that were like, no, don't do that, and I just explained. I'm like, you know what? We would do this if you called and bitched at us just to get you to shut up. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times that's what companies do is like, oh, what can I do to get this guy to shut up, right? And I'm like, I personally want to do it for the people who didn't call us. You know what I mean? Like they were just happy throwing it in the trash and saying, hey, lesson learned. I won't buy that antenna again. And they didn't hold it against us. They could have. You know what I mean? Like 100%. Like we sold them something that was not what they expected. But they had already thrown it in the trash. They moved on with their day. They were still happy with our service. And those are the situations that I'm glad at the end of the day that we went back and called and talked to them, because I'm like, man, I want to hear that. I wish they would have called me earlier. When you do call and bitch, just let us know that you love us still. And
it just started off with like, hey, I'm going to vent. If somebody, I'm going to tell you right now, somebody answers the phone and talks to me and says, I just need to vent, I'm going to listen. And you can yell, you can use whatever vernacular you want to use. I could care less.
Right. So anyways, we'll wrap this up. That's basically on the antennas. You've seen the Facebook post. I'm excited about these antennas. I think they're going to be a long-term product that we're going to have for a long time. And we'll see our green ones slow off. Before I let go, I went and grabbed a bunch of antennas out of the trash from our service department, because the question I have is, are they chewable? You know, what's the chewability of them? And so I have, for comparison, I have some green ones that's got chewed out. And I picked the worst ones I seen in our trash. So there's a green one that got chewed up. That one got chewed off in the tip. You know what I mean? Some
that's a good
exposed.
one. I got one like that's almost a full fish hook on the end like that.
So anyway, so definitely some chew on our green ones. And I looked at some Garmin ones. And so the Garmin ones are more built like what our new ones are. And they don't hold up any better. So I don't think, if you're looking for a chew-proof antenna, I'm going to tell you, these are not going to be like all chew-proof. I haven't figured out how to get the chew-proof done. So,
but they are these. We should clarify, these are not the flavored antennas.
Yeah, they're not flavored, and they're much more durable than the PVC coated antennas. So the PVC coated antennas, when you chewed those, the end would fray out. I don't know if you ever seen those tracking collars. It made like a little rat's nest at the end of the collar. For the most part, these don't make the rat's nest. I've seen some antennas, very few, that come out with a rat's nest at the end.
The eye pokers.
The PVC coated ones, the really flexible ones, if dogs start chewing on those will turn into a rat's nest at the end, and they can poke eyes, whatever.
I'm assuming the chemical or what this coating is somewhat non-toxic.
Dogs don't care.
I mean, care. I know.
They're gonna chew.
You're gonna clean it up no matter what happens anyway, man. They don't give a crap.
I know. I was just thinking, like,
no, it's
They
just chew on them.
It's different PVC. I mean, that's on a scale that,
they're not chewing enough of it to make them see the little tiny pieces they
probably.
There's
all studies about the plastic and the
problem.
You know what? But I mean, you can get into total weeds on that, like all the plastic in the bottles and the water bottles, and like that's on a scale that.
I left my foil hat at home today, so we can.
I wouldn't say it's foil hat. I think there's some truth to that.
Sure.
But I don't got the bandwidth to figure out what I'm going to put on a coating.
Like, our dogs are chewing it and getting extra, right?
Yeah. If I could figure out how to make them not chew it, like putting some toxicity shit in there that they don't chew on, maybe we should put that in there.
Coat them with chili powder and just send them home.
Dude, the crib spray, I've had guys use that with good luck, like for cribbing horses. Spray them down like that apple bitters or whatever. People
should let us know what works to get dogs to stop chewing on them. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. I'm not going to. We got to wrap it up. All right. Anything else, Jason?
No. Welcome to the team, Mike. Hopefully everybody will get to talk to you at some point.
No, I'm learning. It's second day, halfway in, already on the podcast. Good for me. But
this is the top. So like, just so you know, you reached the top.
It's downhill Day 2 from here.
No, I'm really happy. Like you said, I've been asking some questions. I'm probably too technical and I'm like digging into the weeds too soon. But I'm enjoying it so far, and it's nice to be in a small team environment, family, happiness based. So it's a good change, and I'm really excited moving forward.
Well, there's no hunting season going on right now, so my happiness level is I'll just be at work.
wait till about October.
My happiness goes down in hunting season. I want to be here. I'm like, let me go on hunting.
September, October is like a ghost town sometimes.
Exactly.
That's fine.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up.